Good morning, students. Welcome to the subject of environmental science. We are dealing with unit number 1, and in the last lecture we have already finished with the environment and its introduction as part A. Today we are to start with part B of unit 1. Right? In the very introductory sessions I have been telling you that the whole syllabus has been divided into 4 units, but into AB parts. That means in all we will be learning 8 different parts, and that you have to keep the point in mind. Right now we have completed with unit number 1 A part, and we are going to start today with environmental science. That is what is the subject, and that particular area we are going to discuss here with the various aspects, which we call it unit number 1 part B. Alright, as far as the contents are concerned, the contents are before you. What we are going to study here is meaning and definitions and principles of environmental science, scope of environmental science, human environmental relationship, causes of environmental destruction, environmental ethics, awareness programs, and importance of environmental studies. Why it is important to study environmental science or environmental studies, that will be discussing as the last part, that is known as importance. Right? So let us begin with the fresh unit or fresh part of the unit today. As I told you, in the introductory part of A of environment, we have already studied about the basics of environment, like what is made up of, what environment is made up of, its scope, maybe geochemical cycles, types of ecosystems, etc. in detail. Now in this part we shall study environmental science in detail with its meaning, definitions, and principles. Means we are going to deal with 3 aspects here. We have divided the whole thing into different parts. Right? So different aspect we'll be learning here. We'll try to see first with the meaning, what do you mean by environmental science, what are its particular definitions, and what are its principles. So basically we'll be studying in this B part about the environmental science as the subject which you are learning and what it is all about. Right? So let us begin. Suppose when we are dealing with the meaning, then one must be clear that what is environmental science, right? Then environmental science is the field of science that studies the interaction of physical, chemical, and biological component of the environment. What is environmental science? Environmental science is such a kind of field. It is such an area in which there is a study of what? Study of interaction between what? Between the physical, the chemical, and biological component of the environment. Environment consists of 3 in fact 4 different zones. We have seen that, right? It is the hydrosphere, lithosphere, atmosphere, and the biosphere. It all consists of this physical, chemical, and biological component, and that when there is an interaction means when they are coming into contact with each other, and when we try to study the context, we try to study what happens because of that basic area is known as environmental science. It also studies the relationship and effects of this component with the organisms in the organization, in the environment. Means you have to understand that it also studies what it studies. First thing, it studies the physical, chemical, and biological component of the environment and their interaction. It also tries to see the relationship and the effect of these components. Means how they are interrelated, what happens if this thing goes like this or the other thing goes the other way around. That means એની ઇફેક્ટ છે, એની અસર છે, એ પણ સ્ટડી કરવામાં આવે છે. જેટલા એન્વાયરમેન્ટના ઓર્ગેનિઝમ્સ છે એ એકબીજાની એની પોતાની એક રિલેશનશિપ કેવી રીતેની છે, સંબંધ કઈ પ્રકારનો છે, પ્લસ એના કોમ્પોનન્ટ્સ છે એ એની ઇફેક્ટ એના ઉપર કેવી આવે છે. That is also studied here under the environmental science. Thus, the field of environmental science is done basically with the following motive. That means the field of environmental science deals with 3 motives. What do we learn, or what do we need to understand at the end of learning environmental science? Then 3 different questions we can answer. Right? Number 1, to learn how the nature works. Right? That means how the nature works. કુદરત કેવી રીતે કામ કરે છે એને તમે સમજી શકો છો with the help of environmental science. Plus, to understand how we as humans interact with the environment. That means we, the human being, how we deal in the environment. And next, the related point to determine how do we affect the environment. That means આ ત્રણેય વસ્તુ છે એ એન્વાયરમેન્ટલ સાયન્સ આપણે ભણીએ અથવા એન્વાયરમેન્ટલ સાયન્સના એના સ્ટડીની અંદર આ ત્રણેય વસ્તુ કવર થાય છે. દેટ મીન્સ નંબર 1, how the nature works or how the natural world works. Next, to understand how we as human interact with environment, આપણે environment સાથે આપણે કુદરત સાથે કેવી રીતે interact કરીએ છીએ અને what type of human activities are such or what type of human activity or what kind of effects are created on environment, that also we get to learn. And that is why it answers basically these three things, right? So once we are telling that what is environmental science, then at the end of this slide you should be clear that environmental science is the field of study of science in which we are studying the interaction એટલે પરસ્પર એ લોકોનો કેવો સંબંધ છે, કોનો? ફિઝિકલ, કેમિકલ, બાયોલોજિકલ કમ્પોનન્ટ. જેટલાય ફિઝિકલ કમ્પોનન્ટ્સ છે નેચરની અંદર, જેટલાય કેમિકલ કમ્પોનન્ટ્સ છે એન્વાયરમેન્ટમાં અને જેટલા બાયોલોજિકલ કમ્પોનન્ટ્સ છે એ એકબીજા સાથે કેવી રીતે ઇન્ટરેક્ટ કરે છે એ જે સ્ટડી કરવાનો એરિયા છે એને એન્વાયરમેન્ટલ સાયન્સ કહેવાય. Number 2, it also studies the relationship. કોની સાથેની relationship of the organism with the other organism and the effect created by these components. That means શું કરવાથી અથવા શું થવાથી શું થશે, what will be the cause and effect, એ બધી વસ્તુ આપણે આ મેજર સબ્જેક્ટની અંદર, મેજર સ્ટડીની અંદર આપણે ભણી શકીએ છીએ. અને when we say that we are doing environmental science, then at the end આપણને શું ખબર પડવી જોઈએ? It has got 3 motives, 3 motives છે environmental science ભણવાના. Number 1, we get to learn about nature, naturally. Number 2, we understand the human interaction with environment. That means how we behave with environment, we'll get to know. See, આ બહુ જ ઇનિશિયલ પાર્ટ ઓફ ધ સબ્જેક્ટ છે. તમે આપણે જેમ જેમ આગળ જતા જઈએ છીએ એમ યુ વિલ ગેટ ટુ નો કે હાઉ વી એઝ હ્યુમન બિંગ ઇઝ ડિસ્ટ્રક્ટિંગ ધી એન્વાયરમેન્ટ, વોટ કોઝિસ વોટ એન્ડ વોટ શુડ વી ડુ. આ બધી જ વસ્તુઓ છે એ આપણને આ સબ્જેક્ટ લર્ન કર્યા પછી ખબર પડશે, શીખ્યા પછી ખબર પડશે. દેટ ઇઝ વાય હાઉ હ્યુમન ઇન્ટરેક્ટ વિથ એન્વાયરમેન્ટ ઇઝ ઓલ્સો અ પાર્ટ ઓફ ધીસ study, right? And to determine means to decide that how we affect the environment, whether we are positively affecting it, very good. If we are creating any negative impact, then somewhere we need to stop. પણ આ ક્યારે ખબર પડે? જ્યારે આપણે આ perfect environmental science નું study કર્યું હોય. So it's a study of 3 things together. I repeat one more time. It is to learn how the natural world works. Number 2, to understand how we as human interact with the environment. And number 3, to determine how we affect the environment at the end, right? Third motive, as I told you, is very very important કારણ કે એ શીખવા માટે જ આ સબ્જેક્ટ આપણને ઇન્ટ્રોડ્યુસ કરવામાં આવ્યો છે. so that ultimately at the end of the subject, it's not only clearing the subject as syllabus, but at the end of the subject we must realize, or after the study of this subject we must realize that what we can do and what we should do, right? And what we should not do so that the environment is not getting affected negatively. That means આપણી બધી જ એવી activities at an individual level also, at the community or society level also, at national level also, at the global level also, what we should continue doing to regain the environment and what we should stop doing, એ વસ્તુ આપણને શીખવાડે છે. એ આપણે આને સ્ટડી કરીએ તો આપણને ખબર પડે કે આપણે શું કરી શકાય, ડૂઝ અને ડોન્ટ્સ છે એ આપણને આ સબ્જેક્ટથી ખબર પડે છે. દેટ ઇઝ વાય ધ થર્ડ પોઈન્ટ ઇઝ વેરી ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ, વિચ સેઝ દેટ વી કેન હાઉ ટુ ડિટરમાઇન. દેટ મીન્સ ઇટ ગેટ્સ us to learn that how we can affect the environment. આપણે મારા એક કચરા ફેંકવાથી શું થાય, ખાલી એટલું જ વિચારો કે if you are not throwing your trash into the dustbin or you are not discarding it properly from the house or maybe from the city or your village, that means what it causes. એ વસ્તુનું એ ખાલી આપણને ખબર પડે તો we'll come to know that how we as human and our activities affect the environment. So the third motive of determining how human affects the environment is very important, because with this we can also find out the ways to deal with these effects created on the environment, which is harmful at times to the environment. Too much of industrialization, urbanization, fast progress of mankind, we have created so many problems for the nature earth or mother earth, right? So the deep study under the environmental science is required to find out better ways to strike the balance. We have to, after learning, there are so many environmental scientists, there are so many people working purely on how to save environment and how we can how we can just try to avoid not doing few things, right? How we can create the awareness. So those things are created, those things are taught, and that is the area of the study of environmental science. Because of too much of industrialization and urbanization, industrialization એટલે ઔદ્યોગિકરણ, urbanization એટલે શહેરીકરણ, રાઈટ? તો ફાસ્ટ પ્રોગ્રેસ જે હ્યુમન બિંગનો છે એના એ કઈ કોસ્ટ ઉપર થાય છે, એની આપણે કઈ કોસ્ટ પે કરીએ છીએ? તો કે આપણે આપણા નેચરને, આપણા એન્વાયરમેન્ટને, જેના થકી વી આર લિવિંગ, ઇટ ઇઝ બિકોઝ ઓફ એન્વાયરમેન્ટ દેટ વી આર સર્વાઇવિંગ. એ વસ્તુ આપણે ભૂલી ગયા છીએ. એન્ડ દેટ ઇઝ વાય સમવેર વી નીડ ટુ just realize this, that now if we are not aware, if now we are not saving the environment, there are no chances that it will be saved in future. That is why it's very important. So the deep study is required under the environmental science. એના કર્યા પછી, આ સ્ટડી કર્યા પછી we don't have to sit, we don't have to be dormant. Instead what should we do? We should try to strike a balance. કેવી રીતે બેલેન્સ? કે ગ્રોથ થાય, સસ્ટેનેબલ, લાંબા સમય સુધી આપણે પ્રોગ્રેસ કરી શકીએ, પણ એન્વાયરમેન્ટને જેના થકી આપણું જીવન શક્ય છે, because of which we can survive, should also be protected. So that is what we get to learn at the end of study of this environmental science, right? Thus we can say that environmental science focuses on the following aspects. So if we are learning environmental science, આપણે આ સબ્જેક્ટ શું કામ શીખીએ છીએ, તો આમાં environmental science શું છે? તો at the end what do we get to learn? Number one, sustainable life on earth. That means લાંબા સમય સુધી આપણે આટલા રિસોર્સિસ સાથે જીવવું છે અને આરામથી જીવવું છે, not disturbing the earth. That should be the first motive. That is the first motive. We happen to realize થાય કે no, we have to have the sustainable life on earth. Number two, developing a way of practical perspective to observe and learn to view and understand our environment. That means we create a kind of perspective. That means એક આખું દ્રષ્ટિકોણ એવું ઊભું કરીએ છીએ, જેમાં આપણે ઓબ્ઝર્વ કરીએ, જેમાં આપણે અવલોકન કરીએ, આપણે શીખીએ કે કેવી રીતે આપણે એન્વાયરમેન્ટને સમજી શકશું અને એને કેવી રીતે બચાવી શકશું, રાઈટ? અને what approaches can be adopted in our routine life to protect our earth. That means what we can do for our earth, that is very important. What we can do for our nature environment is very important. Somewhere at an individual level we often feel that આપણા કરવાથી શું થાય, right? What happens, only one person cannot do anything, but I feel that we can always initiate. આપણે ખાલી ડસ્ટબિનમાં ગાર્બેજ નાખવું આટલું આપણે શીખીએ છીએ અથવા આપણે એને ફોલો કરીએ છીએ. દેટ મીન્સ વી આર ડુઈંગ અવર પાર્ટ ઓફ જોબ ઓર અવર પાર્ટ ઓફ ડ્યુટી ટુવર્ડ્સ નેચર, રાઈટ? સો ઇવન ઇફ ધીસ petty things we keep in mind and we try to create the environment, the atmosphere around us clean, that also matters a lot, because if everybody starts thinking like this, it will be a movement, right? And what happens because of that? Then we can have a clear environment, we can have a better environment, because the day is not far ke apne we are already observing that, right? That we live on artificial oxygen, right? The pandemic that has taught us right now that, see, if you don't care for nature, nature is not going to care for you. And it has punished us badly in the form of pandemic that we all are observing right now, right? The lifestyles have changed. We have to wear the masks. Even if the nature is giving us the pure oxygen, we cannot inhale it, because it has created such kind of thing that tells us that it actually warns us that, see, if you don't take care of us, or that means nature is not going to be there for you. આટલી બધી ટ્રીઝ આપણે ડિફોરેસ્ટ કરીએ છીએ, રાઈટ? આપણે આપણું આખું વાતાવરણ છે એ પોલ્યુટ કરીએ છીએ. તો અલ્ટિમેટલી નેચર હેઝ taught us, it has given us the punishment that, see, if you don't take care of us, we will not take care of you. That means we have to, even if the oxygen, natural oxygen is available, આપણે જોઈએ છે ઘણા બધા પેશન્ટ્સને, they have to be on the artificial oxygen. That means the day is not far when we'll be wearing the mask and we'll be getting the oxygen from outside, and only then we'll be able to survive. If I repeat, if we don't take care of environment right now, જો આપણે હવે, it's a high time, રેડ એલર્ટ છે કે જો આપણે હવે નેચરને નહીં બચાવીએ, પ્લાન્ટેશન્સ ઓફ ટ્રી નહીં કરીએ, somewhere we are not taking care of the global warming at our as a responsibility of a citizen of the earth, right? Then in the future years, that means in 15-20 years to come in future, the next generations will be having lot many problems as far as the environment is concerned. તમે આપણે આટલું પણ કુદરત અત્યારે માણી શકીએ છીએ, પણ the day is not far if we keep on destructing and deploying the quality of environment, then what will not actually deploying but degrading the quality of environment, then what will happen is environment will be not suitable for us for the sustainable growth, right, or sustainable life. આપણે લાંબા સમય સુધી હેલ્ધી જીવન જીવી શકશું નહીં. So at the end of environmental science, or it focuses on all these aspects. So once we learn this, we should be alert about this. Again, how with the routine life, how we can protect our earth, that is those approaches are also taught here. And very important is the last point that we make, the justified use of natural resources. Natural resources એટલે કુદરતી સ્ત્રોત, જે પણ કુદરતી સ્ત્રોત આપણને ઈશ્વર આપ્યો છે, right, whatever the God has created for us. In the further part of the principles we'll be learning it in detail, but whatever the God has created for us, so that we can live a healthy, pure and a very good life, right, because of our activities. Nature was not this before years, right, it was very pure. Why? Because it see, there is a law of reciprocation. What you give, you receive, right. So here also we over the years of progress, as I told you, શહેરીકરણ, ખૂબ બધું industrialization, urbanization, so many type of technologies we have started using it, forgetting that ultimately it is the mother earth who is providing us with all these resources, and if we don't make the justified use of it, ultimately we will have to pay a very high price for it. So justified use of natural resources is very very important, કે આપણે જેટલી નેચર પાસેથી જરૂર છે એટલો જ સ્ત્રોતનો ઉપયોગ કરીએ, સ્ત્રોતનો બગાડ ન કરીએ. And the biggest example that we have studied up till now is the 3% pure water available to us, right, and that 3% water keeps on સર્ક્યુલેટિંગ ફ્રોમ અર્થ ટુ એટમોસ્ફિયર. આપણે વોટર સાયકલમાં જોયું છે. હવે એ પણ આપણે જો બગાડશું, એનો પણ આપણે દુરુપયોગ કરીએ છીએ. ઇફ યુ આર નોટ મેકિંગ ધ કરેક્ટ એન્ડ જસ્ટિફાઈડ યુઝ ઓફ ધીસ પર્ટિક્યુલર રિસોર્સ, આઈ એમ ઓનલી ટોકિંગ અબાઉટ વોટર રાઇટ નાઉ, then the day is not far wherein the pure water will not be available to drink. Even for our human activities also pure water આપણને મળી શકશે નહીં, right. So it is all these happenings because of the human activities that we do. હવે આપણે જ્યારે એ વસ્તુ માટે એલર્ટ હોઈએ કે આપણને એ વસ્તુનું થોડું કંઈ નોલેજ હોય, then at our point or at our stand we have to take the correct decisions. We have to see that we make the best out of nature and we do not harm it, right. Thus it adds in more of the social sciences for understanding human relations, perceptions and policies towards the environment. We get to know how we are related, how the perception, દ્રષ્ટિકોણને કે કઈ પ્રકારની આપણી કેવો દ્રષ્ટિકોણ હોવો જોઈએ ને કેવો છે, કઈ પ્રકારની પોલિસીઝ અપનાવવી જોઈએ environment related, everything it teaches us. Environmental engineering means through our activities, through our proper activities, we can rectify whatever errors we have made and we can improve the quality of life on earth. So environmental scientists study subjects like understanding earth process. Environmental scientist હોય અથવા તો એન્વાયરમેન્ટને જે સ્ટડી કરતા લોકો હોય, what do they do, why are they doing this? Because they want to understand the process of earth, right. They want to evolve with new alternative energy sources, because we have already exhausted what we had. આપણી પાસે જે હતું એ લગભગ આપણે વાપરી ચૂક્યા છે, અને હવે જો આપણે જે છે એને નહીં સાચવી શકીએ તો it will be very difficult for us to survive. Pollution control કેવી રીતે કરવું, right, how we can lessen the pollution control, that means how we can control it, how the natural resources can be managed, and how the ગ્લોબલ ક્લાઇમેટ ચેન્જ જે છે જેને લીધે આપણે વી હેવ એક્સપિરિયન્સ્ડ એટ અવર લેવલ્સ ઓલ્સો દેટ ઇવન ઇન ધ મંથ ઓફ say November, December, what the earth tells us, it's actually there is no certainty about weather, there is no certainty about rainfall, there is no proper changes in the climate as we used to experience say before 10-20 years. That means these are all the climatic changes that has happened because of our activities. So environmental scientists are always making us aware with their research that see, if we do this will be the reaction, this will be the happening and we should take care of this. So environmental science એવું સ્ટડી છે કે જેના આધારે જેના પછી આપણે આપણને આ ઘણી બધી વસ્તુઓની ખબર પડે છે. Environmental issues almost always include an interaction of physical, chemical and biological processes we have seen earlier. Thus, the study of environmental science by environmental scientists bring a systematic approach to the analysis of environmental problems. Why are we learning environmental science? Because at the end of learning of environmental science, we have seen that what type of processes happen naturally, what interruptions we do in our interactions with the environment, what should not be done and we are doing since so many years. So what happens because of that? We ourselves have created environmental problems, and now it's high time that we should find out the solutions for the same. That is why it is very important to study the environment as the subject also. And environmental science is such a kind of wide area that is being studied by so many environmentalists and so many scientists on the earth, right? So here we go with the definitions of environmental science. Like number 1, it's a branch of biology which focuses on the study of relationship of natural world and relationship between organism and their environment. We have seen earlier also environmental science કેવી branch છે તો કે biology ની branch છે જેનું કામ શું છે, જે શું કરે છે, તો it tries to check, it tries to observe what the relationship of what natural world and the relationship between the organism and their environment. Nature શું છે, કુદરત શું છે, અને જે કુદરતમાં રહેતા રિલેશનશિપ શું છે, ઓર્ગેનિઝમ્સની એન્વાયરમેન્ટની સાથેની રિલેશન કેવી છે. On that basis our life is dependent, on the basis the years to come is dependent, and that we can study with the help of environmental science, right? Number 2 definition gives us the idea that study of process, principles and practices relevant to air, water and soil and interaction between human activities on the earth also can be studied. આપણે શું સ્ટડી કરી શકીએ? પ્રોસેસ સ્ટડી કરી શકીએ છીએ. પ્રિન્સિપલ્સ આપણે in the further part we can see કે કયા સિદ્ધાંતોનો ઉપયોગ કરી શકાય, કઈ પ્રેક્ટિસીસ કરી શકાય, so that air, water and soil can be studied. એની સાથેની આપણી હ્યુમન એક્ટિવિટીઝ કેવી છે અને કેવી હોવી જોઈએ, that can be understood very well. Next, it is the study process which leads to pollution or significant damage to the environment, and its scientific solution which can be clean, safe and healthy for the life on earth. So that means study process which leads to pollution, જે pollution તરફ લઈ જાય છે, right? એ વસ્તુને આપણે અટકાવીએ, જે ડેમેજ કરીએ છીએ એન્વાયરમેન્ટને, જે સાયન્ટિફિક સોલ્યુશન્સ જે આપી શકાય છે, right, for clean, safe and healthy earth, that also can be learned, can be created with the help of study of environmental science. The 4th definition tells us all. It's a nutshell and it tells us everything about what we have done in the previous slide. The field of science that studies the relationship of physical, chemical and biological component of environment, it is made up of 3 main objectives. કે interaction શું કામ અથવા આ શા માટે કરવું જોઈએ? Number 1, interaction of human with environment can be known, right? Number 2, how natural world on earth is working, એ પણ આપણને ખ્યાલ આવે છે, અને how people affect the environment. માણસો એની પોતાની એક્ટિવિટીઝથી, that means human activities, how we are damaging at a point of time the environment, that also we get to learn. Thus, from the above definition, it is clear that environment is the complex composition of so many different elements and subjects like biology, geology. See, biology, we know it is connected with the body of the organisms, right? Geology is connected, geo is earth, so geo means earth nu je study che, that is geology. Chemistry, we know, we have already studied biogeochemical cycles, in which we have studied that there are so many elements, there are so many chemicals available on the earth, and earth is a closed system, એટલે એમાંથી કશું બહાર નથી જતું, and it's just that it keeps on transferring or transforming its form, otherwise nothing goes out. This study provides even the guideline for understanding this complexity. બહુ જ કોમ્પ્લેક્સ, બહુ જટિલ આખું કુદરત છે અને એનું આખું રોટેશન છે, તો that we get to learn with the help of environmental science. Again, its study helps us to find out the solutions. Very important is the last line, that with the help of environmental studies we get to learn, or we get to find out the solutions to various different environmental problems, and that is for that reason also it is very important to study the environmental science. So what we have done up till now, we have tried to understand what is environmental science, right? And we have also seen few common definitions through which we can come to know that what is environmental science. Here In the third part, we are taking up with the principles of environmental science. અમુક સિદ્ધાંતો છે એન્વાયરમેન્ટના, અમુક સિદ્ધાંતો છે say કુદરતના, right? And that we need to understand. Here, number one, nature, 7 such principles are there which are common, which are global, right? એ બધી જ જગ્યાએ લાગુ પડે છે, and that is why they are common to understand, and that is why we are going to start with first one, that nature knows the best. જેટલી કુદરતને ખબર છે એટલી આપણને ખબર પડતી નથી. We humans have to understand nature and follow its rules, because if we want to make sure a continuous and steady supply of resources, we must not go against the natural processes. If we as humans cause any kind of disturbances in the cycle of nature, this can bring imbalance to our ecosystem. આપણે સામે જે અત્યારની પરિસ્થિતિ છે, the prevailing situation of the pandemic, that's also one of the reason of the disturbance that we have created to the nature, right? And nature has taught us the lesson that, see, we know it best. If you don't know how to respect us, we also don't know how to save you, right? So one must understand this. Number two, the principle number 2, all forms of life are important. See, at times we think that we as human beings are the most intellectual people or the creatures on the earth, and that is why we have got the right to take any decision, and in that case the small creatures are not important. But nature says that everything is important in its natural process. Nature says, environment says that બધી જ નાનામાં નાનું ઓર્ગેનિઝમ છે, let it be the earthworm, right? અળસિયું પણ છે, તો એ પણ એક આખી એની પોતાની એક ઇકોસિસ્ટમ છે, એક આખું એનું પોતાનું એક આખું સાયકલ છે. એન્ડ વી મસ્ટ અન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડ દેટ the smallest organism on the earth is so very important, and that is why it has been created, right? So each organism plays a very fundamental role in nature. It is easy to appreciate the beautiful organism like butterflies, especially if one knows their important role in pollination. That means one knows that butterflies are very beautiful creatures, though they are very small, and just appreciating the beauty will not do that, but it has its role to play. એનો એક રોલ છે પોલિનેશનનો મીન્સ getting the say seeds from one plant to the another, right? It collects the extract and it tries to bring it to some other plants, and that is what its role is, and we cannot forget it. The giant ones like elephants, the whales, the alligators are ones which we respect mixed with the fear or wonder and the products they produce. That means even the alligators, the elephants, or maybe the whales we are afraid of, and that is why we try to respect it. But actually what we are trying to say here is that every small animal has its own role to play in the nature, and we must not forget it. That means every life form has its own role to play in nature, and thus should be respected immaterial of its size and function. Whatever the smallest function performed by the worms, maybe earthworms, right? તો અળસિયાનું પણ એક અર્થ નીચે, જમીન નીચે એનું પોતાનું કામ છે. વી હેવ સ્ટડીડ અર્લિયર કે માઇક્રો ઓર્ગેનિઝમ્સ હોય તો એનું પણ એક અલગ કામ છે કે એ લોકો શું કરે છે વિથ દેટ, વિથ ધ હેલ્પ ઓફ દેર ઓન body, they try to bring up, they try to, what do? Is they try to break the chemicals, and they try to bring it to its original form. So this is what is done by it, and we should not forget that every organism on the earth is very, very important. If we go to the third part, it is everything is connected to everything else. That means we live in a cyclical form. That means our connection is with the environment, and in environment whatsoever creatures are, they are connected with each other in one or the other ways, right? So we know that in an ecosystem, all biotic means having life, and abiotic means non-living, right? Whatever the components are present, whether biotic or abiotic, it has got its own way of interaction with each other, and it's a system, and it helps to sustain the system properly. So it's very important that we should accept this as it is, that we all are connected with each other, may it be the small organism or anything. If we want to maintain and balance our life, everything has its own importance, and they are interconnected to each other for their survival, and we should accept that. Any interruption from outside may cause an imbalance and leads to the collapse of the system. That means if anything happens outside, or if we are creating any kind of disturbances from outside, then it will lead to the collapse. Collapse means the whole ecosystem may be damaged, or it may collapse at a time. right? So we have to take care that everything is connected. મારા કરવાથી શું થાય એવું નથી વિચારવાનું, મારા કરવાથી બધા જ connected, one or the other ways we all are connected. The organisms on the earth are connected with each other and we should respect it. Everything changes, right? We have seen over a period of time everything changes. The environment is constantly changing. We know that the organisms also develop over a period of time. However, with our activities we know we have affected the nature to a great extent. These changes have now caused many problems to the nature itself. It's time that we should rethink our relationship with the environment, because negligence is often turn out to be disastrous. That means any kind of negligence means carelessness. કોઈ પણ પ્રકારની carelessness છે આપણે ક્રિએટ કરીએ છીએ તો it will disturb the, and it may be in the form of disaster. એ એક એક્સિડન્ટ તરીકે ને બહુ મોટું ડિઝાસ્ટર ઊભું કરી શકે એવું પણ હોઈ શકે. So we have to take care that we should not create the problems for nature, right? It's high time that we understand the relationship of our survival with the environment, and we should also understand this, that environment keeps on changing constantly, right? We go to the fifth point. Everything must go somewhere. I have told you in the earlier lectures that earth is a closed system, right? Everything ends up somewhere. ક્યાંક ને ક્યાંક બધું પૂરું થાય છે અને પાછું એક આખું નવું સાયકલ ઊભું થાય છે. So it doesn't just disappear, but it changes its form. For example, if you throw a piece of wrapper somewhere, right, it may disappear from your sight. That means if it is lying in the room and if you place it in the dustbin, it's only that you cannot see it right now. You can't see wrapper in the house, but it is somewhere, it is lying, so it is somewhere in the dustbin, right? That means somewhere or the other it changes its form, but it's not that it never happens that it completely vanishes from the earth. And that we have seen through the different biogeochemical cycle, that chemicals, even the compounds, the chemicals which may seem to be losing itself, but somewhere it's changing itself, and it's not completely that it goes out of the closed system. So we must understand this. Thus any type of pollutants should be properly discarded, very important. So whatever we are throwing in the say nature or environment as the garbage, then we must understand this. At the end of this lecture we must understand that this we can't do that, because if we are doing this we cannot see the garbage in our place, but somewhere or the other it has been discarded improperly. That will create and that will affect the environment in one or the other ways, right? So taking due care of the nature and observing that we live in a closed system where everything exists, may be in a different form. That means બધું જ રહે છે પણ એને એ કયા ફોર્મમાં છે, વેધર સમવેર ઇટ ઇઝ નોટ ડિસ્ટર્બિંગ ધ અર્થ, એ આપણું જોવાનું આપણું કામ છે. એન્ડ વી શુડ ટેક કેર ઓફ દેટ. Our earth is infinite. That means the earth has got infinite kind of things and resources, but its justified use should be there. Our earth has got two types of basic resources. You must have studied this earlier in your school, wherein it is said to be renewable and non-renewable. Renewable એટલે ફરીથી તમે એને reuse કરી શકો છો, right? Because of the natural cycles like water, air, plants, right, and animals. While we also have the non-renewable resources which are once used cannot be replenished. એટલે તમે એક વખત એને વાપરી લો છો તો ફરીથી એને તમે વાપરી શકતા નથી. And that is why its replenishment means any એક વખત refill કરવું છે તો we cannot do it. So that should be kept in mind. એટલે renewable resources છે એને કદાચ આપણે વાપરીને ફરીથી આપણે એ ફરીથી સાયકલમાં આવીને it can come to use, but non-renewable resources should be used in a very justified way. Overuse of any resources will be harmful to the whole ecosystem. Next, and the last one is seventh one, which says about the God's creation. We all know that God has created this nature and we must respect that. All among the creatures, we know that human being is considered to be controlling the other creatures, as he is the most intelligent and the gifted creature on the earth having the advantage over the other creatures, but a care is to be taken to see that we protect other creatures on the earth which coexist. That means though we are most intellectual people and we are most intellectual creatures on the earth, we must not take the other creatures for granted, right? We must understand that if we are not taking good care of them, then somewhere we are disturbing the earth, we are disturbing the nature, and it's a God's creation. We cannot make the changes as we want, so it's very important to change our activities at the end. Moreover, humans cannot exist without nature. We must realize this, that આપણે નેચરને જેટલું નુકસાન પહોંચાડીએ છીએ તો ઇન ધ લોંગ રન આપણે કુદરત વગર, નેચર વગર નથી જ જીવી શકવાના, નથી જ સર્વાઈવ કરી શકવાના. And it's high time that we realize this and should respect each and every creation on the earth. We have not created anything. It is the God who has created, Almighty who has created this, and it is His property, right? And if we start disturbing the property of nature, then nature has ways to punish us. Needless to say, we all know the present situation, and maybe the situations goes worst in the coming years if we don't take care of nature and if we don't respect it. આ બધી વસ્તુ આપણને કેવી રીતે ખબર પડે છે? because we are studying environmental science. So environmental science is a study, અભ્યાસ છે. શેનો અભ્યાસ છે? એટમોસ્ફિયરનો, એન્વાયરમેન્ટને સમજવાનો, વાતાવરણને, આપણી આજુબાજુનું જેટલા ક્રીચર્સ છે એને સમજવાનો, and how we interact with them. We try to understand that and what should be done and what should not be done so that we are not disturbing the environment is the prime concern of environmental studies. And after learning this, we must also respect and try to take good steps to see that we are not disturbing the earth or we are not disturbing the nature in any known ways, right? So when we meet next, we shall be continuing with the further topics. Right now it's the end of unit 1 part B, and that is unit 1B part, and this is the 10th session of unit number 1. Until we meet next, it's a goodbye from my side. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.